Now tuned into the best show you could tune into. This is the show where you earn the discipline to show up day after day, to do the work, the confidence to put yourself out there boldly and authentically, and the mental toughness to continue showing up, doing the work, putting yourself out there, even when the success you expected to achieve because you've been following the formula hasn't even happened. And you're wondering, you're questioning the formula, you're questioning yourself, you're wondering if you should keep going. If you got the mental toughness, you'll keep going. And on top of all that, we got to put this into action. You got to get started in the first place, right? So we're going to give you some personal initiative. This is the go-getter energy that moves anyone out there, including you, to go and make things happen instead of waiting for things to happen. And we put all this together in one bundle, one package, one mindset, one method, one philosophy. There is a book, and this is the masterclass that is called Work on Your Game. My name is Dre Baldwin, also known as Dre All Day. Welcome to the show. Today's topic is how to produce more ideas, or just how to get better at having ideas, how to get better at executing ideas, how to get better at coming up with ideas, just how to be better with ideas, period. People have asked me many times over the years, since I've created so much content. Over the years, I've created over 15,000 pieces of content between YouTube videos, articles that I've written, this show right here, live streams. If we count stories, Snapchat stories, Instagram stories, Facebook stories, I've created over 15,000 pieces of original content, more than any human being in the world since I came in the game in 2005. And people want to know, how do I come up with ideas consistently? How am I able to keep doing it and keep coming up with something new? How am I able to keep supplying this show right here with more ideas every single day? Now, I talked about this in the past in a few episodes. I'll refer you to them now. Masterclass number 694, the topic being a good idea can come from anywhere. Number 140, the exact topic is how I produce ideas. And number 70 was answering the question, Dre, how do you generate so many content ideas? So if you want to get better at creating ideas, first of all, go and consult those previous master classes. But if you want to get better at creating ideas, whether it be for solving problems in your daily life, for creating content, for helping other people out, for any reason whatsoever, this masterclass right here is going to help you know exactly what to do and how to do it to get started on it. Point number one, the topic once again is how to produce more ideas, or we can just call it how to be better with ideas, period. Point number one, excuse me, remember that your idea creating mechanism is a muscle. Meaning your ability to create ideas works the same way that your biceps or your legs would work for lifting a couch, or pushing a car. If you got to push a car up a hill or move it off to the side of the road because something's wrong with it while you're driving, it's a muscle, which means this: it has to be exercised to be strong. That's the way muscles work, right? It's the same way that your brain works. Your ability to think is a muscle. You don't challenge yourself to think too often, and then you come into a situation where you need to think, but that muscle hasn't been activated because you haven't been using it. The muscle has atrophied away. Then you can't call on your muscle and say, all right, I need you to think right now. The brain's going to say, well, listen, you haven't trained me for this. I'm not prepared for this. And you may not be able to think as critically as you need to. Another example would be maybe if you want to go run. Let's say you're outside and for some reason you got to run. You got to run away from a rabid dog that's chasing you. And you got to run for 1 mile. You got to run at a pretty fast pace to get away from this dog that's trying to attack you. Maybe the dog has rabies. Who knows? But your body isn't trained for it. You haven't done any running in 10 years. You run out of breath just while walking up a flight of stairs. You might not make it. And that dog might end up catching you. And then you got to deal with the dog rather than dealing with being out of breath because your body just wasn't trained. Your muscles were not ready to do what you were asking it to do in that moment. It's the same thing with coming up with ideas. And I would think, if you think about it, that we all face situations and circumstances in our lives where if we were better at coming up with ideas, we'd probably be able to find a better solution, or maybe a solution, period, to situations that we face in our lives. So you got to exercise this idea creating muscle / mechanism in your brain on a consistent basis. You got to train yourself to come up with ideas. So what are your sources of ideas? I'm going to tell you the 3 sources of ideas. When people ask me how I come up with ideas, there are only 3 sources. Here they are. One is experience. The second one is thinking. And the third one is other people's material. Those are where I get all my ideas from, 1, 2, and 3. Every idea I have ever had came from some combination of the above 3. Sometimes just one of them. Maybe I'll go somewhere in my life and I experience something. This is the experience one. And something happens. And just from that experience, I think of something that I want to share with my audience. And that's exactly what I do. Sometimes I might just think of something, maybe something that happened in my past, and I'm like, you know what, that would be a good story that I could share there. Or maybe I see something happen to somebody else, another person's experience, and because of what I saw, I'll come up with some content for that. So sometimes it could be just one of these things. Again, experience, thinking, or other people's material. I might be reading somebody else's book and they make a point. Maybe they just make a point that's not even the main point that they're trying to make. They just throw something out there offhanded, and I take that line that they said and I extrapolate that and make it into my own content because they just said something that just touched me or caught my attention or hit a nerve with me, and then I can go extrapolate it out and create my own content out of it. So this is where all the ideas come from. Again, 3 things: experience, 1, thinking, 2, and other people's material, 3. Sometimes it's 1, and sometimes it can be mixing and matching. So you go through an experience, maybe you don't know what you could draw from that experience, but then when you get time to think about it, you get time to reflect on it, you come up with some things. You might come up with 3, 5, maybe just 1 thing from that experience because you had a chance to think about it. Oh, all right, here's something from this experience that somebody else could benefit from and you can share. Or maybe you see somebody else's material or something else that someone else experienced. Maybe you experienced something too, and you and that other person had completely different experiences. So then you can juxtapose your experience and their experience, and that can be content right there. Maybe if you consume somebody else's material and they say when you do this it's going to go this way, and then you go do that thing and it doesn't go that way, you got a different experience than what they said was going to happen, and then you spend some time thinking about why is there a difference between what they predicted and what actually happened to me. Now you can create a new piece of content, and there you combine all 3 of those, but it's always some combination of 1, 2, and 3. Maybe just 1 of them, maybe 2 of them, maybe all 3 at some point. So it could be just 1, it could be all of them, but these are where your ideas come from. To get better at creating ideas, all you got to do is challenge yourself to do so. Now, is that easy? Is that hard? I don't know. It depends on you. Write down 10 ideas every single day. That's all you got to do. And these ideas, understand, when I tell you write down 10 ideas a day, this is something I got from James Altucher, was part of what he calls a daily practice. He has a podcast and a pretty good writer himself as well. You look him up. He talks about the 10 ideas. The first time I heard him talk about it was probably 2013, 2014. And around probably late 2014 going into 2015, I started really doing this in earnest every day. I started writing down 10 ideas, and I've been doing it every day for the last however many years it's been since then. And with the daily practice of these 10 ideas, understand that these ideas, you don't have to do anything with them. You don't have to actually make a blog post or write anything based on the idea. You don't have to execute on the idea at all. It doesn't have to be a good idea. The idea does not have to make sense at all. It doesn't even have to make sense. All it has to be is an idea, period. And whether you do something with it or not is up to you. But the whole point of coming up with 10 ideas a day is just to get the muscles moving. Okay, it's just like if a person has been very sedentary in their lives and they just want to get in better physical shape. The first day, we're not going to say, all right, go run a marathon or go play in an NBA basketball game. At first, how about we just walk around the block a couple times? How about we just walk half a mile outside every day for maybe a couple weeks and just get used to that? Then maybe we can ramp it up to maybe doing some yoga, maybe then doing some step aerobics. Maybe eventually you get to, maybe we can walk a 5K or something like that. But we're not going to go from 0 to 100. We're not going to go from 0 to running a marathon. You don't have to go from never coming up with ideas, coming up with just amazing, groundbreaking, earth-shattering ideas in one day. Your muscles are not ready for that. Now, if you try to tax the muscles at that level when they're not ready for it, you're more likely to injure yourself. I don't know if you can injure your brain, but you understand the metaphor that I'm giving you here. Don't try to push yourself too hard, too fast. Start off with something simple, was just writing down 10 ideas every single day. They don't have to be good ideas. They don't have to be sensible ideas. There doesn't have to be a logical path drawn of how these ideas could actually come to fruition. All you got to do is just come up with them. Okay, just get used to your muscles, your idea muscles moving. That's better than what you've been doing up to this point, which is not having idea muscles moving, because one day you are going to need an idea, and the better you are at coming up with them, the more easily you'll be able to handle that need, serve that need / handle that challenge. Point number 2. Today's topic is how to get better at coming up with ideas and creating ideas. Number 2, this is not even so much of a tactic for coming up with ideas, but this is just a way of retaining them. Trust a short pencil to a long memory. I heard a guy say this in a business meeting when I was probably in college. I went to some type of business event and the guy said this. He said, I trust my short pencil over my long memory. In other words, what he was trying to exhort the crowd, the audience to do, which I was a part of that audience, was to take notes. He was explaining to the audience, listen, don't just come to this event and sit down and clap for everything that I say and, co-sign the things and shake your head when you feel like I made a good point and laugh at my jokes. Yes, do all those things. But at the same time, you are not going to retain most of what I say. You are not going to remember most of the things that I say. And then he probably shared some statistic about how human beings, we retain very little of what we actually hear, especially over the course of a day. Now, this meeting that I'm referring to probably happened close to 20 years ago. Nowadays is even worse because, again, we have these handheld devices that are giving us more stuff for us to take in and process all day. Literally 24 hours a day, your phone is probably within arm's reach of you literally 24 hours a day, except maybe when you're in the shower and maybe if you happen to go to the gym and work out, if you don't keep your phone by your side while you're doing it. Some of you use 24 hours a day all the time, which it's inundating us with more things that our brain has to process, but our brain still has the exact same capacity to remember things that it had before we had smartphones, which means now you're just giving your brain more things and asking it to, but it still has the same capacity to remember. So it's just forgetting a higher percentage of things than it used to forget. It was still forgetting a lot of stuff back then. And again, when I went to this meeting, I think we had cell phones, but we didn't have smartphones. So he was saying, listen, just write down the notes, write down the things that you want to remember, the things that you want to retain, because by the next morning, 99% of what you heard here today, you are going to have completely forgotten. And I believe that when it comes to ideas as well. In other words, write them down. When you have ideas, like I just told you on point number 1, I didn't say come up with 10 ideas a day. I said write down 10 ideas a day. If you notice the wording of what I gave you on point number 1. Somebody asked me once, I was doing a live stream probably just a week ago from when I'm recording this. I was on Instagram. And those of you who don't know, I do a live stream. I've been doing a live stream every day at 6:15 p.m. Eastern on Instagram, which is at Dre Baldwin, and also on Facebook at Work On Your Game. And I do them at the same time. So you can log on to either one and you can get the full material of those live streams. And by the time you hear this, I'm probably still doing it. That's why I'm willing to announce this, even though I think that most of you know that I record these way in advance from when they actually come out. But since they're evergreen, it doesn't really matter. But when I was doing this Instagram live, or I was doing this simultaneous live, Facebook and Instagram, I was in the Q&A section, which I always take questions at the end of the live stream, in case you didn't know. And someone said to me, because I was referring to previous master classes that I had done on the live. So I had talked about whatever I was talking about on the live stream. Someone had asked me a question. I answered that question. I said, well, I did some master classes on that subject, which is what you're listening to right now. And I started referring them to different episodes that I've done. And I told them, if you go to Work On Your Game University, workonyourgameu.com, you can get access to the game group, your first 2 weeks free, etc., which you already know about because you're listening to me right now. And someone else interjected and asked a question. And they said, well, not interjected, but they posted a question. And they said, Dre, how do you remember the numbers of all those master classes that you've done? Because at that time I was telling them, listen, I've done 1,400 of these things. I do them every day. And I was rattling off numbers and topics and telling them how they can get access and why it would directly answer the question they were asking. Someone said, how do you remember the numbers of all those master classes and the names of them and things like that? And I said, well, I don't remember them. I just write them down. All right. I think I'm a pretty smart guy. I'm not that smart. Now, I'm not that much of a genius that I can memorize the numbers and the titles of 1,500 master classes. I wish I had that level of memory. I think there are people out there who teach that, but that's not something I really have capacity for. I want to devote my resources to that right now. All I do is write it down. All right, so I can remember what I've talked about in the past because I have a list. Every single masterclass I've ever done on this show, right now as I'm recording, I'm looking at the list. I have it right here in front of me, all the way down to starting at masterclass number 1, all the way up to this one that you're listening to right now. What number is this? 1479. I have a list. Every single one I've ever done is written down. And if you are a game group member, you know that list, I've made it available to you. We update it. Usually every couple weeks or every month we'll update it. So if it doesn't have every single one of them, the new ones in there, just stay tuned. We will update those very soon. But the whole point is I write things down. Okay, I don't trust my memory. I'm not a memory expert. I have a good memory for narrative. I remember a lot of stories and anecdotes. And if you listen to this show often enough, you probably notice that. And often those anecdotes and stories are not in my notes when I'm recording the show, but I just think of things as I'm talking about it. And that's one, it's because of my faculty for memory. Another reason why I'm able to do that is because I have all this experience in doing so much recording, and I just get better at it the more that I do it. But the whole point that I'm giving you here, we're still on point number 2. I write them down, so all I have to do is look to remember what my ideas were. So writing down those 10 ideas a day, maybe 1 or 2 or 5 of them become actual actionable ideas. Maybe there's something I can do to update a sales funnel, or something I can do to share on Instagram, or some kind of post that I can make on Facebook that would be really engaging for my audience, or maybe an idea for a masterclass that I could do right here on this show that I will do because I've written down. But maybe 80% of the ideas that I write down, nothing ever happens. They just sit there and that's it. The whole point of the idea exercise is not that every idea is great or useful. The whole point of the idea exercise is to keep my idea muscle activated. It's kind of like going to the gym and working out, not because you're about to go try out for the NFL or you're trying to make the Olympic team, but because you just want to make sure that those muscles are activated and you're moving your body and you're giving your heart a workout so that you stay physically healthy and you can stay alive and take care of your kids and see life as it advances. That's the reason that you're doing it, not because necessarily you're getting ready for, you need to achieve some certain level of achievement or get some accomplishment or a trophy. So when it comes to ideas, do not be the fool who thinks that you can remember everything that you think of and that you'll have perfect recall when you need it. Because as the last time that I checked, you're probably human or you're not going to remember. Unless you are a robot listening to this and you're machine learning everything that I say, then you're not going to remember anything that I say. Most of it you're not going to remember within 48 hours. Write your ideas down and keep them in one place so that you have them for future reference. And these days we got plenty of document software and all of that will allow you to note ideas and write things down so you don't have to worry about trying to remember it. Let your Google Docs or your Notes app or your email remember things. It doesn't go away. Point number 3. Today's topic is how to get better with ideas, producing them, creating them, remembering them, using them. Point number 3, remember this: no idea is original. This is a really important point for all the creators out there, because I can't tell you how many times I've been talking to someone, maybe talking to a person, maybe listening to someone give a speech, listening to a podcast, reading a book, and I'll hear somebody who is there at some level of expertise. They have an audience themselves. Maybe I'm a part of that audience, and they'll share one of the same concepts that I've shared sometime in my past. I'll be at an event sitting in the crowd in a conference, and the guy on stage will say something that, I've talked about that. I talked about that in one of my master classes 3 years ago. Or I wrote about that in one of my books. Or I talked about that on Instagram 3 weeks ago. And they share the exact same concept. Now they have a different angle because they have their own life story and reason that they're talking about it and way of explaining it. And people learn it and hear it different depending on who you're hearing it from. And I know 100%, I'm 99%, let's say, sure that they did not hijack the idea from me. They didn't read my book and say, all right, I'm gonna steal Dre's anecdote, or I'm gonna steal Dre's little nugget there and I'm gonna put it in my speech, or I'm gonna take what I heard on Dre's podcast and I'm gonna share it on my podcast. Most of the time, that's not what it is. Now, of course, you're going to have imitators. When you're good at what you do, people will imitate and try to emulate what you're doing. They'll fail. They won't last too long trying to do it. Trust me, I've seen them come and go. But the whole point that I'm giving you here is, most of the time when someone has the same idea and same concept as you, they didn't steal it from you and you didn't steal it from them. They came about it through their experience. You get it through your experience. And we all have different ways, again, of giving our knowledge to our audiences. Even though we may be sharing the exact same point, people have different ways of explaining it, and you're going to hear it differently based on who you're hearing it from and who you are as a person, what state you're in, where you are in your life when you hear it. You can hear the same information more than once, but when you heard it last year, you were in a different place mentally than you are when you hear it this year. And you're going to get different things from it because you're in a different place mentally with how you're taking things in. So my audience, when I share some information, I know sometimes that, listen, I'm not the first person to ever share information on how to get better at coming up with ideas. All right, guaranteed. I've read books about coming up with ideas years before I even had an audience on the internet. So I know I'm not the first person to ever talk about this, but at the same time, that didn't stop me from making this masterclass right here and the other 3 that I referred you to at the top of this episode, because I understand that my audience, being you need to hear certain things from me that you don't want to hear from the guy whose book I read 20 years ago, or from somebody I heard at some event, or somebody else who has a podcast about coming up with ideas. You don't want to hear from them. You need to hear it from me. And you're going to get certain things hearing it from me that if you heard the exact same concept from somebody else, it would go in one ear and out the other. It just wouldn't land with you. That's the way that it works. And I'm explaining this to you for a reason. Everybody else who has an audience, who might be talking about the same thing that I'm talking about, they might talk about discipline and mental toughness and confidence and coming up with ideas on basketball. Who knows? Their audience needs to hear that from them. They don't need to hear it from me. They wouldn't get it if it came from me, but my audience gets it when it comes from me. So we all have our own audiences. Everybody does not take in the same things the same way. That's why you can have more than one person out there in the world talking about, hey, here's how to master, here's some tips and tricks for your iPhone, or here's how to get better at playing soccer, or here's what you need to do if you want to get back to your pre-baby body if you're a woman and you just gave birth 3 months ago. There could be more than one person talking about it. It doesn't have to be just one person who nobody else can get in because somebody else is already speaking about it, because everybody doesn't want to hear it from that one person. Somebody else can come in. There'll be plenty of room. What this means for you is this. Your ideas, concepts, and content ideas need not be completely brand new and earth-shattering. It doesn't need to be never before spoken material for you to share it. There are 7 billion people on this planet. So anyone who's listening to me right now who has an audience, if you create content, if you sell products and services, I want you to go look up your statistics. Look up how many people have ever watched if you add up every view of every video you've ever put out and every view of every article you've ever written, you add up all the likes and views to every post you posted on social media, you add them all up and go hire somebody to go do the calculation if you need to and add all the numbers up. I am willing to bet, I'm 99.9% sure that if you add all of it up, it probably doesn't even equal 10% of the 7 billion people on this planet. And we're not even considering the overlap of your fans who might have consumed some of your material 1,000 times just on their own. That's not 1,000 different people. That's one person 1,000 times. You add it all up. Every view, every like, every engagement, every email open in the history of everything you've ever put out is not even 10% of the world's population. What does that mean? There are a whole lot of people out there who haven't heard it at all from anybody, let alone heard it from you. They haven't heard what you've heard. They don't know what you know. They have not experienced what you experienced, and surely not in the way that you're going to deliver it. So do not hold yourself back from sharing your ideas simply because you heard somebody else talk about it before, or you know you're not the first one to talk about it, or you think you're not perfect when you talk about it. Those are all good reasons to do it. Those are all good reasons to share it. You don't have to be the first. You don't have to have invented it. You just have to have your own angle, but you have your own angle and your own reason for sharing it and your own personal experience that makes it yours, that you can own it. You're not just sharing raw, bland information, because Google can do that better than any of us. If you have some angle of it that makes it unique to you, you need to share it. Okay? I talk about confidence. It doesn't mean you can't talk about confidence. I talk about this one, doesn't mean you can't talk about it. Come up with your own reasons to talk about it, your own angle, your own experiences that make it, again, that flavor it with your style that nobody can steal from you. Then you got something new. As soon as you add your own spin to it, it's new. We call it, in music, they call it the remix. All right, there's nothing wrong with making a remix. Make your own version of material that could already be out there. No idea is original, ladies and gentlemen. None of us human beings who's alive today is coming up with some brand new idea that nobody ever had before in the history of the world. That's not happening. If you think somebody had a brand new idea, they didn't. It's just new to you. It's not new, period. It's just new to you. Let's recap today's topic, which is how to produce more ideas and how to get better using ideas, period. Again, I'll refer you to 3 masterclasses. Numbers 694, 140, and number 70, all about ideas. If you haven't listened to those before, go listen to them now. If you want to get better at creating ideas for solving problems, creating content, helping other people, any reason, then you need what I'm sharing with you here today. Point number 1, your idea creating mechanism is a muscle. It has to be exercised to remain strong, the same way any other physical part of your body. If you want it to be ready when you call on it, you got to make sure you're giving it exercise even when you don't need it. So your sources for ideas are experience, thinking, and other people's material, or some combination of the above. Every idea is coming from one of those 3 or a combination of those 3. To get better at creating ideas, all you got to do is challenge yourself to do so by writing down 10 ideas a day. They don't have to be good, don't have to be useful, and you don't even have to execute on them. Just need to get the muscles moving by writing them down every day. Point number 2, trust a short pencil to a long memory. In other words, as I said, write down the ideas. Don't just come up with them. Don't just think about them. Write them down. People ask me, Dre, how do you remember the names of your master classes and the numbers of each one? Well, listen, I'm not that smart. Again, I like to think that I am, but I'm not. I write them down. All right, the reason I'm able to refer you to previous masterclasses is because I write them all down. I know what they are. Write your ideas down in one place for future reference. All right? I don't need to explain how you can do that. And point number 3, no idea is original. All right, I hear people all the time sharing concepts that I've shared before, and I'm like, damn, this person said the same thing that I've said. I said that 2 years ago. I said it 2 weeks ago. I just posted that yesterday. Now they're talking about it here as if they came up with it. Well, here's the thing. A whole bunch of people came up with it, and we and that other person are probably not the only 2 people in the world sharing it. Maybe we don't know about the other people, but they exist. No idea is brand new, ladies and gentlemen. It may be new to the person you're sharing it with, which is good news for you. It doesn't have to be brand new to the whole world for you to share it. Understand that people need to hear your concepts and your ideas and your content from you. They don't need to hear it from the other person out there that you originally heard it from, or someone else out there who you may think is your competition. People need to hear it your way from you. There are 7 billion people on this planet. Nobody has reached all 7 billion of them. So whenever you think that a market is saturated or an idea has been shared too many times, maybe it is saturated, maybe it has been shared, but if you add your own spin to it, i.e. your personal flavor and your personal experience, it becomes brand new at that point. So do not be bashful about putting your concepts and ideas out there just because you have discovered that somebody else shared it before you. That's all right. Your way of sharing it makes it brand new. Work on your game. Dre all day.